Now, it's been claimed today that around 100 extremists could be allowed back into Britain if Shamima Begum is permitted to return from Syria, the prospects of which are said to have been bolstered by the fall of the Assad regime. The warning comes days after the senior national coordinator for counter-terrorism policing, Vicky Evans, warned that the political situation in Syria may create a space for extremism and acts of terror right here in the UK. And although the Metropolitan Police say there is no evidence yet that IS extremists are wanting to return to Britain's streets, they are very much aware of the risk. So are we gambling on a serious risk coming here to Britain and our national security in the next few weeks and months? Now, I'm joined by my panel again, former Labour MP Lloyd Russell-Moyle and political commentator Alex Armstrong. Alex, how concerned should we be about this threat from Syria? I mean, if Shamima Begum is allowed back in, is this essentially opening the floodgates to some of those kind of former British nationals, some of whom are still actually British nationals, coming back in and bringing that hate-filled ideology with them?
Yes, well, it sets a precedent, doesn't it? That's the reality. It would set a legal precedent for those other people to come back in, and it would be one of the worst decisions taken by this government yet. I mean, there's been plenty of them. It's extremely worrying. I mean, we've seen, obviously, this new regime starting to take form in Syria, which is an Islamic extremist regime. They have roots in al-Qaeda, despite saying that they're no longer affiliated. Well, that would make sense because al-Qaeda has been obliterated. But I think, you know, these people have said that they're fleeing Syria. Lots of people coming to this country, they're fleeing Assad regime. That's fallen now. They're going to be putting in an Islamic regime, more than likely. So surely people like Shamima Begum, who have fought for this, would be more comfortable staying there. If they're coming to the UK, or any of them do come back to the UK, well, we'll know they'll be up to no good, surely.
So, Lloyd, I mean, this is all going to happen under a Labour government, former Labour MP. I mean, should these people even be allowed back into Britain?
Well, we need to do something with these people. I'm probably one of 3 MPs who have visited them numerous times in the camps. I've visited northeast Syria, controlled by the Kurds. I'm allies to the Kurds 6 times over the last 8 years. And they are dangerous people. And I've spoken to, sat down and spoken to Jihadi Jack. I've spoken to numerous others of them who have had their citizenships taken away. I've not sat down with Shamima Begum herself. And my view is that with the fall of Assad and the danger, actually, of HTS now there, that they may be released. And my bigger fear is that they will be released and able to roam around the world, running recruiting centres and camps for people who are disaffected and hate the West to come and then try and kill us. So I actually think that it's not a case of whether we let them back in and roam around. It's we need a process, whether that is an international prison to put them in, or whether it's a prison in Britain, but it needs to be a high-security terrorist prison where we do not allow these people to roam around the world. So I don't think it should be framed in a, are we letting these people back? It should be framed of these camps. I mean, just in the last week, there have been 8 Daesh ISIS attacks on these camps to try and free these prisoners from these camps that the Kurds are currently holding. It is ongoing, and as the Kurds' control will weaken because of HTS, and they will have to come to an agreement with HTS, and part of that will be about weakening controls of those camps, then we need to act very quickly to remove those that we can control and then make sure that they suffer a punishment for the awful things that they did.
Alex, I've just come in. I mean, the reality, though, too, is through our weak, if not broken, asylum system, we have historically let people in who have gone on to commit massive acts of terrorism. I think about the Manchester Evening News arena bombing that was obviously perpetrated by people who had used the asylum system to enter Britain and had then been moving between Libya and the UK. I mean, for many people watching this show, this is going to be yet another example of how the safety and security of British people appears to be at risk, while the state appears to be not doing anywhere near enough to keep them safe.
Yeah, quite, Matt. It's quite shocking stuff, and we've only just seen what's happened in Germany as a result of asylum seekers coming into the country who obviously don't like what Germany stands for. Our borders are porous. There are people, as we've seen today, hundreds of people coming into the country. We don't know who they are. So I think what Lloyd's saying, that these people could be released into the world, well, what's stopping them getting a boat from Calais?
We do know who they are. They're mainly under the age of 40 majority, and they're mainly men.
Mainly
they
men.
often come from Islamic countries.
Correct. But we don't know who those exact people are when they come over on the boat. It's kind of what I'm saying here, is that those terrorists...
Well, the biggest foreign contingent group are actually former Kazakhs, former Stans, and then China.
And quite a lot from Vietnam as well. But there's also, you know, there are a lot coming from Afghanistan and Syria and elsewhere. So
they're not the biggest. Afghanistan is not the biggest contingent in the ISIS camps. There are some, but they're not much bigger than some of the Western European countries' numbers.
But we have large...
You said they're from Islamic countries. It's not quite true in terms of the numbers, if you look at those numbers in the camps.
We have large numbers of people entering Britain. We don't know who they are. Yep. We don't really know where they're from because they destroy their passports, but we do know they're men under the age of 40.
And that's exactly why we need to get the asylum system sorted.
And also, it's part of a bigger debate, though, isn't it? It's not just about the 100 extremists that might come to Britain. It's also the fact that this appears to be happening at the time that we have this mass migration explosion in the country. We've got record levels of legal migration. We've got an illegal migration crisis that isn't working. And then we've got this glaring lack of integration in Britain that many people in the country up and down England will see, you know, communities that aren't properly integrating. It just seems as though the government isn't thinking about the bigger picture here. Where is this Labour government taking us over the next 10 years?
Integration, that's a really good point. And your earlier article, where we didn't really comment on it, was about the national curriculum. 80% of our secondary schools don't have to follow the national curriculum. I think getting integration back up would be ensuring that all of our secondary schools have to follow a national curriculum so that everyone buys into a similar idea of history, a similar idea of British values. And so that's why I think the Labour change is positive, because it is about saying we do recognise something gone very wrong with integration.
Listen,
we need a basis for everyone to be integrated into this country. I think that's positive.
That's very, very dangerous route of thought.
What do you mean it's very dangerous?
Because
the argument is there's no integration.
Hang on. No, but their argument is that young people must appreciate, read the words, must appreciate diversity. What if they don't want to appreciate diversity? You know, you're telling them how to think. We mustn't tell young people how to think in the education system. We must present them with facts.
I'm sorry. We must tell them that murder is wrong. We must tell them all those things.
No, sorry, guys, the debate is going to carry on. Thank you for your views. I think ultimately it's going to be the British people who end up having to suffer any of the consequences that may or may not happen. Thank you to